kondig ik de eerste spreker aan die een inleidende presentatie zal houden over de cannabis, een gereguleerde cannabis en vergunningplichtige cannabisindustrie. Sorry, gereguleerde en vergunningplichtige cannabisindustrie. De heer Vidjai Doerga.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, First Lady of Suriname, Suriname itself, thank you so much for taking the time out for this historic event that we're having today for our country. This is going to be the first actual public event officially recognizing industrial hemp industry into Suriname, and I'm absolutely proud that I'm able to be one of the experts speaking at this event, so thank you very much for that. So today we're going to be talking about true sustainable development. So what is industrial hemp? What does it mean for Suriname? And essentially how do we get to where we can build out a global leader in terms of cannabis industry innovation and development? So I myself and the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Neurvana International, we're a cannabis corporation out of the United States. We are Surinamese by heritage, so we are very proud of that. But we started off in California in 2014, got into the cannabis industry out there, and from there really saw the fortuitous future in it, and decided, the best thing to do is bring this back home to Suriname. So that's what we're here doing today. So, I have the clicker here. All right, perfect. Okay, so first things first. This is what we always have to get out of the way in the very beginning, the difference between hemp and marijuana. So much of the issues in the world with not understanding that these are two very separate and different plants comes from the fact that the three vocabulary words, cannabis, hemp, and marijuana, they are used interchangeably around the world right now, and it really shouldn't be done. They're very specific vocabulary words that have very specific meanings. So specifically, cannabis is the name of a plant family, the same way that you would have citrus is the name of a plant family. And then hemp and marijuana are cousins within that plant family. So the same way that you would have grapefruits and oranges that clearly they look different, but they're still part of the same plant family. It's the very same thing with hemp and marijuana. So you have hemp, which is a very tall plant. As you can see, it's highly industrialized in its production. It's mechanized, it's automated. Whereas marijuana in its production, much smaller plants, very labor intensive. They have to be tended to individually, things of that nature. And then particularly the big thing is that the THC development in the plants. So in production and in trade, hemp will always have a low THC content. That's sort of the natural distinction of the plant, whereas marijuana has higher potency levels of THC, and that's used more for pain relief and things of that nature where it's necessary for the treatment. Okay, so I'm sure everybody has heard the incredible information about how valuable of a plant cannabis can be, specifically industrial hemp with its multitude of applications, really. I mean, at this point, even with a lack of research, we've gotten to the point where we already have 50,000 different applications for this feedstock. And the beauty of it is that it's a replacement for a lot of destructive industries that exist in the world today. So the first thing that we always like to start off with is understanding why. Why is hemp such a valuable plant compared to, let's say, a banana plant or a rice plant or something like that? The main thing about it is the multiplier effect. So with a single industrial hemp plant, you will immediately get 4 to 5 commodities, premium market commodities out of that plant immediately, right off the bat. And that's from the very first level of very, very, very basic processing. Things like separating the leaves from the stalk, separating the seeds from the top of the plant. So very basic processing that doesn't really require intense equipment or knowledge and things of that nature. You immediately will get 4 separate commodities, that being the fiber and the hurd, which makes up the stalk. You'll have the seed, which comes off of the top of the plant. And then what we're really focused on in the beginning and the launching of the industrial hemp industry is the leaves and flower for the biomass. That's where we get all of the pharmaceutical medicine, the CBD. The CBD is sort of the largest and I would say at this moment the most fast-running portion of the cannabis industry is the CBD market for the pharmaceutical industries to produce medicines for people, and then also supplements and things like vitamins that you would take on a daily basis, as well as healthcare products, skincare products, all of that kind of stuff. So particularly if we kind of delve into that, CBD as a treatment has been found to treat ailments in ways that are much less painful or side effect ridden to the human body. So that's where you hear about the Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, epilepsy. We have some excellent experts on the panel today that will be diving into those things with you guys. But what really makes this plant absolutely incredible, and this is really where you hear people talking about, you know, it's the wonder plant, it's the plant of the future, all of these things, is the spread of applications after you've already produced that medicine. So once you've produced that medicine and you've extracted the oils off of the biomass of the plant, you still have all of that plant biomass left over. So that essentially would be considered your waste, if you want to call it that. But in this industry, that's not waste at all. That's basically where you're going to start really getting the value out of the plant. So if we take in consideration the stalk is made up of two parts. So you have the inner hurd, which is very similar to the woody fiber board that furniture is made of. So if you've ever seen like IKEA furniture, the pressed wood board, that's what's on the inside core of the stalk of the plant. So that part of the plant is used for fantastic building materials. One of the ones that we're really going to be pushing here in Suriname is hempcrete. So hempcrete, you very simply take lime juice and water and you add it to the inner hurd of the plant, and you get concrete. You get actual building concrete that is its own insulation. There's no need to have massive foundations because you don't have the weight of concrete sitting on top of the foundation anymore. So the foundations can be much lighter, which is cheaper in total. And then the beauty of it is that it's fireproof. It's mildew resistant, it's pest resistant, and it cures over time. So actually, the longer the building is standing, the stronger the material becomes. It almost becomes like limestone after a few hundred years. So even today, there are hemp bridges still in Europe that have been standing since the 1700s because hemp was that much of a commodity back in the day. So moving forward, from the hemp herds, you can also produce paper. Now, if you consider paper versus paper, what we know today, 1 acre of industrial hemp paper pulp produces the same amount of paper as it would take for 4 acres of trees. So it's a quarter of the acreage of vegetation needed to produce the paper pulp. And the beauty of it is that paper pulp doesn't require as much bleaching, and it's a much better product. So if anybody here knows old books, old paintings, Van Gogh, Degas, Rembrandt, the original Bible, the Gutenberg Bible, the King James Bible, they were all very specifically chosen to be written on hemp. They could have been written on other things, cotton paper, papyrus paper, but very specifically hemp was chosen because its properties are so good. So the other part of the stalk, the fiber, this is the outer layer of the stalk. That outer layer is it's a fibrous material, and that's where you've seen, I'm sure everybody has seen hemp clothing coming out in the news media, things like that, ropes, textiles, all of that. That is all coming from that outer shell of the plant. Now those fibers, the hemp fiber is the strongest natural fiber in the world. So for example, in the maritime industry, even with the advent of synthetic plastics made from nylon, from DuPont and things like that, it's not UV resistant. Even the synthetic materials were not able to make it to the quality level of what hemp-based plastics can do, or hemp-based fibers in this case can do. So in the maritime industry, hemp ropes are still the standard because they don't break down in UV, under UV or in water, whereas nylon, which is a state-of-the-art technology, does. So it really, truly is another thing that makes it a wonder plant. Now, moving to the seeds, this is where it really gets interesting for consumption, for human consumption, animal consumption, anything of that nature. But there's two parts to the seed that come out as commodities. So initially, the first level of processing that most people will do is they'll take that seed off of the plant and they'll actually stick it in a cold press. And in that cold press, you'll press out the crude oil that comes out of that seed, and you'll have a seed cake left over inside the actual press. So the crude oil that comes out of it, that there is one of the highest yielding biofuels in the world. So it converts over approximately 98%. So if you have 1 liter of hemp seed oil, it will convert over to 98.98 liters of biodiesel, and that biodiesel will run in all diesel engines with 0 modifications and 80% less carbon emissions. So a beautiful transition fuel in terms of going from what we do now with internal combustion engines over to getting into electric vehicles and things of that nature. It goes farther. Anytime you see hemp beauty products, the things that are topical, whenever you see hemp caplets that are, raw hemp seed oil, anything like that, that's all coming from the crude oil that's pressed out of the seeds themselves. And then another really interesting part of it is that it can be used for cooking oils. So anytime you can think of where you would use canola oil or olive oil or anything like that, now you have hemp seed oil that you can cook with, and everything that you cook with now becomes anti-cancerous, now becomes anti-epilepsy, anti-Parkinson's, anti-this, anti-that, because it has CBD in it. So even though it's not a treatment, but it's preventative. It's just like taking a vitamin every day, right? So the next thing is you have that cake that's left over inside of the press, right? So that cake that's left over, that's the same type of cake or base feedstock that any wheat product can be made from, or any grain product, for example. So that's why you see up there you have flour. If you produce bread from flour, which we all do, I mean, we have de Molen here in Suriname. We also have Fernandez that makes bread. All of these are feedstocks that they would not have to change their infrastructures whatsoever. All they would need to do is change their feedstock from wheat grain to hemp grain, adjust a few knobs to make sure that things are running correctly. And essentially what we'll be doing is producing hemp bread that's CBD infused and anti-this, anti-that, anti-this, anti-that. So it changes the game completely. Then going farther, again, it's still a grain. We have a fantastic beer and rum industry in this country. Now, we can become the world leaders in hemp-based ales, hemp-based rums. This is something that when I was in California for 4 years, I preferred, not because I'm in the cannabis industry, but I preferred to drink hemp ale because it actually tastes fantastic. It's incredible. So, and then moving further to another industry that we also have here in the country, animal husbandry. So if you are raising chickens, livestock of any kind, fish, anything like that, if you switch their diets to a hemp-based diet, those products will sell for a much higher value in their export markets because they get to put all of the buzzword stickers on the packages. It's GMO-free, it's all organic, it's a hemp-based diet. All of these things, they start adding dollars to our operators here, which that adds more economic activity to Suriname. And then finally, there's also the hemp nut itself. This is a way in which you process simply the hemp seed as it comes off of the plant without pressing the oil out of it or anything. And that is where you see the hemp protein that you can, you buy off of Amazon and put that and work out with it. That's where you see from the hemp nut itself. Okay. Now, the global hemp industries and U.S. hemp industry specifically. Now, this is something that I like to point out very specifically. If you see the section in the light blue there, that is actual cannabis industry activity. So that's a cannabis transaction taking place. One operator selling to another operator or an operator selling to business. What you see in the dark blue sections above that is the additional economic activity that happened in the region to allow for the cannabis transaction to happen. So the point of this is to show that, yes, cannabis industry is a massive impactor. Absolutely. Those numbers are still in the billions. But at the end of the day, the multiplier and spin-off effect that you have from the cannabis industry, that's really where the major, major economic impact lies. The cannabis industry is huge and everything. It's great. But the rest of the country will spin off and run into an entirely different level just because it has to support the cannabis industry itself and because of the global demand of that cannabis industry. It's something that you can have it durably over time because it's a supply that we're supplying to the whole world. Now, these are some very basic facts. Now, I do have to give the disclaimer that these studies were pre-U.S. Farm Bill, so these numbers are down by about 10%, 10-15%, I would say. Brightfield Group has marked the global industry by 2021 at $30 billion. They've seen the Granville Research Group has seen a growth rate projected until 2025 of 35% for the industry globally, and they're expecting to see it at about $146 billion worldwide by 2025. Now, again, these numbers are down a little bit because the Farm Bill passed in 2018, at the end of 2018, so that obviously boosts the industry quite a bit more. And I should say they haven't taken Suriname into account yet, and we're about to roll into it heavy. So, okay. Now, industries impacted by hemp. So, as you can see, it has quite a spread. We go from everything from the stuff that we already know, so medicine, pharmaceuticals, agriculture. Those are things that, you know, everybody sort of knows that that's what cannabis is going to impact. But then it goes farther into the spin-off industries and deeper into industries that already exist, but by changing their feedstock, we can really change the way that they do things. So paper and packaging. Change all the packaging paper to the waste products that are coming off of the farms rather than using timber for paper or recycled paper. Wellness and beauty. This is something that putting up spas, getting treatment centers out here, medical tourism, things like that. Food and beverage. This is huge simply because the world is now changing the way that it eats. To a much more healthy form. So this feeds into basically every single sector of the foods that we already eat and makes them more healthy. So we don't have to necessarily go through the change of changing what we actually eat. Alcohol and tobacco, huge because realistically alcohol and tobacco is not something that people are very much interested when cannabis industry is around. So it does have an impact on that, but it brings it in and can kind of boost those as well by diversifying the product range of those companies, which most of the big companies in those industries are switching over into cannabis. They're pivoting into cannabis now. So we have law. Obviously, that's going to be a huge one because legislation needs to change. Fashion and textiles, biodegradable plastics, biofuel, construction materials, products for pets, sleep aids, and cannabis tourism. And cannabis tourism is a big one for us here in Suriname because we have one of the most beautiful countries in the world. So if we can make it a beautiful country and then make people healthy and enjoy it while they're here, I mean, you can't ask for a better situation. So hemp in the world today. These are things that are easy to touch and feel, brands and places that we all know that you may not recognize have hemp products and use hemp products regularly. So we have, for the ladies, I'm sure you guys know Ulta Beauty. They're a beauty store in the United States. That's actually their brand, Kanuka. Kanuka is a hemp-based moisturizing body lotion type thing that was made by Ulta Beauty. EOS, they do lip balms and things like that. Hemp's, and actually I use my Hemp's lip balm all the time. It's awesome. And then we have, getting into clothing, Levi's. Levi's, I don't know if anybody knows that, but the original Levi's brand was all of the jeans were made out of hemp. So when you see vintage clothing and you wonder why, like, Levi's jeans from the 1800s are $5,000 for a set, it's because they were made out of hemp back then. So that's one of the value reasons. So Levi's is coming back with an entirely new line of hemp products. Patagonia already has an entire line of hemp products. Colombia already has a full line of hemp products, and there's many more companies that are rolling into it now. Adidas has been one of the pioneers with the clothing branding. They have hemp shoes, hemp shirts, bags, all kinds of stuff. The big one, this is one that I believe we can really roll into here in Suriname, is the automotive industry. So if anybody has been driving a European car here from, let's say, about 2005 onwards, it has hemp in it. The door panels, the dash, some of the cloth, things like that is made out of hemp. And it was done as mandate by the EU to make the certain value of the certain amount, percentage of the car biodegradable. So, and also a very big thing, and this is a historical point, but Henry Ford, the Ford Model T, the original Model T was a hemp car. The entire thing, the body, everything was hemp, and even the car ran on hemp fuel. So Ford was truly a pioneer in bringing this to a commercial industrial application. And in doing so, they're now stepping back into it where they have a mandate by 2020, I believe it's 2020 or 2021, a minimum of 25% of each vehicle needs to be made out of hemp products. So they're stepping back into their historical framework now, which is fantastic. This is what I was talking about with the alcohol products. So those are all brands that everybody recognizes. Anheuser-Busch, Corona, that's the Constellation brand group. Modelo, Corona, they all have hemp products in the works right now about to go to market. So they're all very heavily rolling into it. And then the big pharmaceutical stores, so CVS Pharmacy, Walgreens, Rite Aid, all of these companies already carry hemp products in their stores. It's already there. It's one of their best sellers, and they absolutely love it. So hemp is already in the world today. It's just we need to bring a little bit more awareness to it, and we here in Suriname can throttle it by fixing the one issue that exists, which is scale of production. So global scale of production is a little bit low right now, and that's what kind of inhibits it from becoming really the replacement feedstock for many things in the world. It's very much oil and gas industry as well. So that's what we're here to solve. So how does hemp develop? Now this is essentially our vision for Suriname. What we want to do, number one, is really leverage the fact that we are a green country. Suriname has more tree canopy coverage than any other country in the world. That's something that we need to not only preserve, but we need to make that a valuable portion of who we are to the world. That we need to take that and add value to it and take the rest of the world and sort of bring them down to us and show them, look, this is what the planet looked like before you guys messed it up. You know, so this is something that we really want to do. We want to show true green economy and true sustainable development. There's no need to destroy the rainforest to build up. It's not necessary. The next thing we want to do is that we want to make Suriname a shining example of cannabis industry for the rest of the world. Industrial hemp is such an incredible plant that because we have the ability and all of the key factors that make this nice, a small population, not a lot of land mass, everybody is sort of close together, highly educated people, all of these things are what allow a country to leapfrog forward and become, for example, like an Israel with technology. We want to become the Israel of cannabis, if you want to take it that way, the Suriname of the world, right? So, and then moving to the last point, which is making Suriname a global cannabis industry leader. And what I mean by that is that we need to go farther than simply producing the product and exporting the biomass. What we need to do is produce the product, invest in our local operators that they can begin doing product development, actual product development, and then create products here in Suriname and deliver them out to the rest of the world. And if we have that built into the Surinamese cannabis economy, it's absolutely incredible what can be done on the ground here. Now, this is a point that I heavily stand on. I'm part of the younger generation, so we're all about sustainability and saving the environment and all of these kinds of things. But this is something that we truly believe in, and I come from large-scale agriculture. Commodities trade is what our business is focused on. And I've seen just about every single agriculture industry in the world. I've run through every single one of them. I've looked at every single one of them. And from an expert's position, I have never seen anything like hemp before. And the reason for that is that every time it comes to a point in which another crop, your palm oils, your elephant grasses, your eucalyptus trees that are used for reforestation or this or that, they always have a negative impact. They either dry out the soil, or they are too much of a monoculture, or this or that. In this case, that's not what it is with industrial hemp. Industrial hemp is one of the largest carbon sequestering plants in the world, so areas that are deforested at the moment can be reforested and turned into production zones, which means the capacity of carbon sequestration in total of our Amazon canopy increases, because it's not only old canopy. Old canopy does not suck up as much carbon out of the atmosphere as new growing plants do. So this is somewhere where we can increase our capacity as or increase our efficiency as the lungs of the planet. So we always like to bring this to the table, which is development does not mean deforestation. It just doesn't. And this is one of the most painful pictures to me, but I think it's also one of the most impactful pictures, which is just a street, one side deforested, the other side still up in green. And this is where that big X should be a hemp farm. And if that big X was a hemp farm, this would be no issue. So this is one of the most important points. What is Suriname's competitive advantage in the cannabis industry? Because no matter where you do cannabis industry, it's going to be valuable. It just is. Cannabis industry is a very valuable industry. But Suriname does have some very particular things that make it strategic and competitively advantageous to other countries to come down here and invest into us and invest into our productions. So the first things first, if you guys see the two lines there on the screen, we are in an equatorial zone, which means we don't get winters. So the largest producers in the world right now are America and Europe and some parts of Southeast Asia. Now, America and Europe, the most that they can do per year is 2 crops because they have a winter. Even in the southern zones, they still can only do 2 crops. Here, we can do a minimum of 2 crops with more than likely about 3 crops. Now, further is our geographic location. So if you take a look at where Suriname actually sits in the world, it's the most ideally located place for large-scale production. And the reason for that being is there's no land masses in front of us to the major markets. So we have a straight shot over to the United States, a straight shot over to Europe, and then a straight shot over to what's going to be the world's largest consumer market in about 10 years, which is Africa. So that being the case, because we are essentially a microcosm of agro-industry as a country, that's what we are essentially, we might as well take advantage of it and blow that out as much as possible. So what our vision is, turn Suriname into a massive source supplier of the product, which we then spin off into a added value industries, and those added value industries now deliver finished products to the rest of the world, not sending off added value for it to be made in other countries by not Surinamese people, right? So, okay, what does it take? What do we need to still do to get done and get started with hemp? So first things first, and this is where it's going to dive into our other experts that are going to talk about it, but we need to complete the hemp industry regulatory legislation. So very simply, if this legislation is not put up correctly, that will be the limiting factor of us getting to the export markets, for us getting to the stabilized markets, to the durability of the value of the industry. So very, very important is that we align our regulations to be accepting and working with the international regulations, but not holding on to the red tape that has come in through pharmaceutical lobbying and things like that. Still giving the researchers and the doctors and all of them the free rein to study things and treat people and let them help people actually, right, without the corporate interest there. And then step 2, implementation of that legislation. That is absolutely necessary because this is going to be one of the most highly it's going to be the most highly regulated and most highly policed and enforced industry in the country. And it's absolutely necessary. Not only, I know many people are thinking that's because it's they have to make sure it's not marijuana. That's a self-policing system, just to let you guys know, because if you plant marijuana close to industrial hemp, it will create seeds in the marijuana and you ruin the marijuana crop. So it's a self-policing system. People will do it maybe one time or something, and if they don't get caught, they're going to ruin and lose all their money anyway, and they won't do it again. So it's something that's happened everywhere that we go. So that implementation of the industry is the second part, and then once we have that done, that's it. I mean, we all start, and we start running one of the greatest industries that Suriname has ever seen. Now, this is my final slide, and I think that the last thing that I would like to leave everybody with is that, you know, I'm coming from a new generation, so everybody always tells me I'm so excited about what's going to happen with and wanting to bring things into the country, and I really take that to heart, and I want to let you guys know that this is the next generation of business that's coming, and it's happened in a bunch of other places already, and I'm very, very excited, and I'm honored actually that I'm able to work at this level in the industry to bring a country online that if we do it and we pull it off right, we will change the game in this industry. Absolutely, we will change the game in this industry. And one simple fact to put that into perspective, the entire United States hemp industry has an acreage of 60,000 hectares. And that's an industry value of about $2.5 billion US per year. 60,000 hectares is a joke in Suriname. I know people that have 100,000 hectares and it's no problem. So if all it is 60,000 hectares to get to $2.5 billion of economic activity per year, $2.5 billion in Suriname is a lot of economic activity. So I want to just put that into perspective. It is reachable, it is attainable, this is something we can do, and it's what we're good at. It's growing plants. It's what we're good at. There's no excuse for us, basically, is what I want to say to finish this off. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I hope I've given you a good basic overview of what the industry should be and where it's going. And now I hand it off to really the experts that I do the stuff taking things to market, right? So I'm the business guy, but now you're going to get into the technical stuff, and these guys are really going to show you the true capacity of this plant and how far it can go. So thank you so much for your time, and please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.